Hello everybody, thanks for joining me on today's Dogfight video. Today we've got a improbable matchup between a high-tech loaded to the gun whales super duper do whatever F-15E versus my relatively ancient museum piece F-100. Who's going to win this one? Let's see what happens. Pulling down at the merge. As with most of the matchups against the F-15E, we are way down on power and speed. So the name of the game for this fight is to keep it tight, work the angles, and take them down. Of course, this isn't a fair fight, among other things. All things equal, I would have been blown to bits by a $5.5 million AIM-120 about 15 miles away from him. But let's just assume things have gone wrong for him and we're at the merge. So let's see what happens here. Again, the game here is just to keep the circles tight. The more I do these dogfights, the more I realize that this canopy is becoming a bit of an annoyance. You can see here, keeping track of this very large F-15E visually is challenged by the fact that we have all these marks and things and whatnot in the canopy. It's to the point where actually fighting smaller opponents like a MiG-15 BIS is basically undoable because keeping tally is just infeasible with all the marks and whatnot in the canopy. And the more you zoom in, the more marks you see, which again, not to knock the Grinnelli team because they clearly did a really good job of modeling the example jet, but I think this is one of those cases where they did a little too good of a job and here's the result. So fortunately we're close enough to the F-15E that keeping visual track's pretty easy now, and he's surprisingly agile given how big of a plane it is, right? Those big conformal fuel tanks and everything weigh him down pretty good, and those exposed bomb rails add all kinds of drag. So kind of interesting to see that big old boat of a jet still hanging with you at the merge, which goes to show you that even if the stat cards say your jet has a superior aspect versus another airplane, never ever underestimate the capability of the crew, because they can still ruin your day. Afterburner kicked off here, which is realistic. Unfortunately, this was a trait that happened with the real jet. The afterburner would disengage on its own at high angles of attack, so trying to maintain speed and not plow into the ground here and waiting for the jet to get level before I kick the afterburner back on. Cycled off again because Super Sabres be a Super Sabre, but the objective is met. I'm still able to keep the jet out from hitting the ultimate hard deck, and we're now on his 6. Should have kept dumping countermeasures. This is generally where the fight ends up if you're dueling with an energy fighter like an F-15E in this. Basically, you're able to get into a position of advantage, and that means you have to pull around and shoot quick, because otherwise, if you don't, they're going to walk away from you. So much as I would have loved to close in for a gunshot against a jet with that kind of power, it just wasn't going to happen. And AIM-9Bs, hardly a wonder weapon. So there you have it. Scratch one F-15E. So again, it's a pretty implausible matchup, but the lessons from previous ones still hold here. If you're in the Hun, keep the angles going. If you're up against Cold War and later jets, just keep inside their turn, and if they're dumb enough to commit to a low speed fight with you, put your flaps down below 230 knots, you'll be able to stay inside of them, and then they still commit to a fight with you at that point. Just point your nose at them, punch off an AIM-9B like you just saw, and move on with your day. Thanks for tuning in. If you like my content, consider subscribing so you get notified when I post my next video, and we'll see you in the next one.